Welcome to the H2Know Podcast, where we take you beyond the headlines and into the heart of Hamilton Community Schools. From classroom innovation and career pathways to success stories and community connections, this is your inside look at what makes Hamilton shine. Here's your host, Zach Harig.
Hello, Hamilton community. Welcome into the H2Know Podcast, another episode today with Superintendent Dr. Brad Lusk. Today we are talking about the Hamilton Virtual School and a new location,
new building
for HVS in the 26-27 school year, which will also lead to some exciting opportunities for our early childhood center, if you will, at Sandy View Learning Center. So let's dive into it. For those that don't know, Hamilton Community Schools has purchased Hamilton Christian Reformed Church on the corner of 36th Avenue and 47th Street here in Hamilton. Let's touch on that a little bit because it was an interesting conversation, interesting how it all kind of came together, but it worked out for both sides, I would say. What was kind of your perspective on how it all went down?
So it was an interesting thing where obviously a couple of years ago, we started looking at, we had some growing programs. And so we looked at restructuring or repurposing the Sandy View Elementary School and trying to give an opportunity for our virtual school students to be in a kind of a traditional or typical school building. So we went through that process because the numbers of the Sandy View Elementary School were getting a little bit smaller. And obviously the numbers at our virtual school were growing. So we went through that process and had, this is the second year they're in there right now. But we've run into a good problem to have, I would say, in that our early childhood center numbers have really grown and our virtual in-person numbers have also grown. So that kind of puts a unique situation where that building now is I won't say over capacity, but we need more room for two growing programs. So that's kind of what brought us to this situation.
And I know you and the district were looking into a lot of different options of how can we move Hamilton virtual, looked at purchasing some different properties. Why did this move and buying the Hamilton CRC make the most sense out of the options?
So that's a really great question. Is when we saw the growth of these two programs, we kind of had to solve a problem. And so we
and quickly.
Yes. And quickly is a good way of putting it. So the past, I don't know, several months, I've been kind of looking around kind of on the down low a little bit of trying to find a spot or find some ways to solve that issue. So we started looking at, okay, can we add on to existing buildings? Started looking at that piece and trying to find spots, maybe in some other buildings that weren't full capacity, and growing or putting on a wing. So let's just take an example at Hamilton L. If we put that wing back on that we just took down, that was going to be a considerable cost, $6 million plus to build a wing. Well, we didn't really have those type of finances at the time. So then we started looking around town. Are there other locations, other buildings that were for sale per se, or trying to bark up a tree or to find a spot? We found a location or two, but we just couldn't come to agreement on a sale price. And again, that was a little bit lower price than putting a whole new wing on, but we just couldn't come together for a good value for our district. And then kind of an interesting cold call, if you will. We'd heard maybe there was a church or two in the area that their membership just wasn't necessarily growing, but it wasn't very large either. And so essentially it was a cold call or a cold call email, however you want to look at, into the CRC and reached out and set up a meeting to have a conversation about it, and found myself having a conversation with Doug Wabeck about it. And he was kind of the instrumental part at that point of, I'm not putting it all on Doug, but he was the connection, if you will, of connecting me with some other guys in the church or leadership in the church. And then one step led to another.
So we definitely have people watching or listening right now that are saying, what is Hamilton Virtual School, right? I know people have heard of it, but they might not know exactly what it is. So how would you explain what HVS is?
I will not do it justice as to what the program is. Mary and her staff do a great job, and it is a quite expansive program. And like I said, I won't be able to do it justice, but everything from we have traditional online learners to that we have more of a literacy-based curriculum with our Bookshark program to we have some just traditional more homeschool students and parents that might want to learn through like a KIT program where it's more like electives-based program where they do a couple electives, to everything where we have some hybrid where they do some online and in-person, to where we have some in-person learners, full-time students that are part of the programs. It's a lot that goes into it, but what I would say is for our general audience or whatnot, to know that it's not only just kids that are on computers. We have kids that want to actually learn in person with the teacher. We have some students that want to do the mixed piece on there where it's online and in person. But we have, it's about 1,400, 1,500 students that are
Yeah.
part of that program. And so it goes everywhere from, that Rockfordish area, Muskegon area, all the way down into the Portage area in that area, because it's a big area all the way to the other side of Grand Rapids to the lakeshore. So we have students from all over, virtual, homeschool, so on. They're part of that school and they do a great job. And they choose that for a program. So we try to honor that. They want to be there for a reason. So we try to honor what they want to learn, yet still try to provide them a good quality of education.
And I know you don't want to speak on behalf of the church, but why were they even interested in having the conversation? And I know they are very excited about the partnership. And I use the term partnership because they cut the district a nice deal. They will operate as a church on Sundays, but then the district will take the building, for what we need it for. So why were they even interested in exploring this and selling it to the district?
So I did not know anybody, that was in part of the church or whatnot. So when Doug kind of made the connection piece, I started having some meetings with them and kind of explaining really early in the process with a guy or two, and then really the leadership council for the church, and really sat down and kind of laid it all out. And we really started talking about what could this look like. So much like I would assume most churches are more entities in this situation, the church, and I'm going to say the church as in the people,
Yeah.
the congregation really take care of the building. And that was the case in the situation, is that they have a congregation that's in the 30s or so. And it's also a congregation they're not in their 20s or 30s, I'll just say.
Yeah.
Great people, but they've been taking care of the building a long decades. For some of these people, decades they've been taking care of the boilers or the HVAC or doing the cleaning or taking care of the landscaping. And it just gotten to a point where, they've been doing it for a long time, and it takes a toll. It's time intensive. And so when I started having these conversations with them about what we're looking for in the district, as to more room for our students and for our teachers to grow, because it's a growing program. I didn't want to make that same situation or same mistake, if you will, with Sandy View, in that we just could not anticipate the growth that we saw. And so with this one, we weren't going to go down that road again. So we overshot big time on the number of students that could be in the building at one time. And so that's what we did. And so that building fit, because we could have up to 300 students at one time on the campus. Right now, we're probably in about the 160 range.
So there's a couple of interesting moving pieces here.
Yeah.
$500,000 to purchase the building. That has to come from the general fund.
Correct.
From the district. Bond funds from the 2023 bond can be used to restore the building, make modifications. So touch on the financial aspect a little bit. How good of a deal is that compared to a $6 million new wing? But then also how much bond money will be going into this, and what are some of the changes that we will see at the property?
So if you do one of those parcel views on the map, you can actually see where it's not just the church building. It's not the building itself. There's actually a parsonage, a home that comes with it. So there's a home, the church building, and across the street, across 136 is also a parking lot. So if you kind of put that all together, it's about 2.9 acres or so in that range. But you have three different distinct places that come with that purchase. So for about for 500,000, that's a fairly good deal in today's market.
Yeah.
Especially if you do a little Zillow searching and so on, you can see
Yes.
that's a good deal. As part of that purchase, what came is a lease back program. And so the church can lease the building at that point, the quote unquote school, here soon, because we will be signing on the final dotted line here very soon. The school will take ownership. They can lease back for their service on Sunday. And so that rental price, per se, of them leasing it is actually factored into the total price of the building. So that's why that price is a little bit lower than what you would probably go for in an open market. That's because they will have that right to use the building on their defined times on Sunday.
What kind of modifications will we see from the building? Because I know downstairs will be the classrooms. I know there's a playground in the works. What can people expect to see maybe next fall?
Let's start on the outside, then workers. So on that building, on the outside of the building, there is kind of the front side of the 136 where they have the parking lot. You can park there, and then there's also a side that goes back to a cadet building. We're going to kind of fence across, so kind of parallel with 136, and then run it all the way down, not close to the train tracks. We got to have the easement, but we'll have a set of fence that goes all the way down and then cuts across to kind of give a defined playground area. That back area, we're going to take up some of that asphalt, and we're going to put some wood chips down, much like you'd find in an elementary school. And then we'll be able to put in some playground equipment back there. We do have a number of kids that the bulk, I would say, of our in-person learners for virtual or homeschool are elementary age. So I'd say probably 2/3 of them. So there'll be a little bit more of a playgroundish area for elementary kids. But we're also going to have that backyard of the building, or I'm sorry, of the house. There's a vinyl fence. We're going to take up part of that and turn that into green space. So there could be some soccer field and so on, and really open that up a little bit so kids can have a little more running room back there. Again, all fenced off for safety reasons, but try to give as much green space for kids to run, play soccer, play tag, maybe have a gaga pit or two out there, stuff the kids like to do, but then also have, as much of a quote unquote traditional playground as you'd find at some of the other elementary schools. We want to try to provide that for our virtual students at this building.
And downstairs at the church, how ready is that? What percentage would you put that at as far as, I know there's an elevator that needs to go in.
Yes.
What are some of the big projects inside the building?
So once you get on the inside, we're going to have the lower level, obviously, is our primary educational place for the students and for their staff. Right now, we've been working with GMB, our architectural firm, and then OAK, our construction management company, to make sure that the big thing is making sure we're in compliance, and that's with code. So make sure we're with code for everything from our ventilation system to our fire suppression system and fire detection system, and then also our elevator. So going through this, we've learned a lot from general assembly to educational assembly and so on for locations and certifications. So it's been a great process to learn in my seat, but also we're gonna move some walls that are downstairs. So if you've been down in there, the church was built in two different parts. There was an expansion part, I believe, in the 80s, if I'm not mistaken, 90s, somewhere in that range, and there was the general part. So really the one part is really going to be kind of where our high schools housed at, our high school students, where those classrooms be a little bit larger. There's less of them, but they're larger. We're going to remove some walls, open up some areas so they can utilize those classrooms in there. We are going to retrofit those classrooms to make sure that they have the same technology and educational settings that our traditional classrooms have, with the dot cams and the either TV or projectors, Chromebook. We're going to put the fiber in, making sure it's fiber-based, not just a Wi-Fi situation for our students. And then our educational area for the elementary part of it, that is where the bulk of the classrooms will be. And that's where we're going to really remove some walls, if you will, that were just there for thin walls, make it a little bit larger classrooms. So we'll go from, right now we're about 5 educational classrooms at Sandyview. Will end up going to about 10, 11 in the new setting. So it's really conducive for more room, allows for more students to take part of it. Unfortunately, we had to turn kids away this year for in-person learning because we just didn't have room. This new setting will be able to do that. Right now, it's not ready for us to move in today or tomorrow or next week, but we're going to go out to bid here in early December. Construction is going to start somewhere in February, early February. And then it's going to be just running gangbusters the whole way to have it ready in August for our kids to go, students and staff to walk in that place and really make it their home.
So this is really taken on a life of its own. I mean, everything from the discussion with the church to now you have construction timelines and trying to get everything ready to go for the 2026-27 school year. Do you feel confident that the building will be ready in August of 26?
The building will be ready.
Okay.
So I've been very clear with GMB and OAK. They've moved up their timeline a little bit just to make sure, because this will happen for our students. It's a big shift for us, but everything, like I said, the bids are going to go out in December. Everywhere they're going to start construction, and it's going to be just gangbusters the whole way throughout there. So it really comes down to a couple big pieces on there with fire suppression, fire detection, HVAC, and then the elevator. Those are the 4 big money tickets, if you will, that go there. There's going to be a fire pump. We have to do a little bit with the drainage area and whatnot for sewer, but it's going to be done. We feel very confident about that. And so we go into it with full confidence that everything will be ready to go. We've already been working on the peripheral pieces when it comes to technology, desks, tables, chairs, all that kind of stuff. We're already working on that piece already. So everything is moving forward very quickly on there, but they felt very comfortable too that everything will be ready for August.
When we announced that we purchased a church as a school district, I think a lot of antennas maybe go up, right? You've had to meet with staff, parents, and some people are totally understand it from the get-go, right? But then there are some people with questions. You met with staff, you met with parents. What has the big takeaway been? What have some of the questions been from from the community?
So a couple key things, and those are some good things, is we knew going into this before we even progressed even to phase 2, or step 2 of the process. I called Troon, our legal counsel, just to make sure, hey, is this okay? I don't want to put the cart before the horse, if you
Sure,
will, on
yeah.
this. Really walking it through and making sure that they understood what we were doing and what we were looking to do. And they assured us that we can make this work as long as we obviously make sure there's separation of church and state.
Mhm.
We'll make sure every kid feels safe and secure and comfortable in our environment. There'll be some times where maybe somebody doesn't feel that all the way because of the actual building or they know the history behind it. But we're going to do our best to make sure that it's a safe and secure place for every student. So when we went through the Troon process, they actually then drafted the documents for us to make sure that it was all legal, and we're crossing the T's, dotting the I's, and then we worked with the council to make sure that that works okay. I would say that the process has gone fairly smooth. I did meet with staff. I gave them a tour of the existing building right now and tried to make sure they understand what you see today is not what it's going to be in August. And sometimes that's hard, to see that. And because what you see, that's what you know, and that's what you can base everything off of. Then we try to show them the plans and walk them through that. As with everything in life, there's some that have some thoughts or concerns or some questions, and there's many that were like, this is me great. There's a lot of room. We're going to have to overcome a couple things. Like we don't have a traditional gym right now for the building for our PE, but we started looking at there's schools are nearby within a couple minutes driving. There's a whole outside space. So between all that, we've been looking at some pool time. We'll be able to provide a lot more opportunities for our students because of the close distance to our quote unquote downtown campus, if you will, that we can work with them on there. The parents, I've offered one right now after about a 7:00 virtual meeting that we had 16 parents show up to. A couple couldn't make that one time work, so I'm going to offer another one for them to join on. But out of the 16, it was a great conversation. They asked some great questions, making sure that the ventilation system is going to be good, well as learning environments. There were some really great questions that came from it, and I've been very upfront with parents. This is what it is. This is what it's going to look like. Walking through all there, and just being honest and transparent with them. Is everybody, like, yes, this is the greatest thing? No. There's like, okay, maybe wait and see, but they see the potential that's going to come with it. And many are very excited about it because
But it's just like Sandy View, right?
100%.
Sandy View was a very similar situation where people are saying, hold on, there's a preschool here and a lot of moving pieces. And I think people saw the good in that. But then, like you said, busting at the seams. So what's your message to people maybe questioning the purchase right now and maybe not seeing what the finish line might look like?
So I think the key thing is trying to not go into too many misconceptions about what it is and just seeing it as a church. And oh my gosh, I'm going to school in a church. No, that's not the case. It's going to be a school building. We've been very upfront with everybody on that. There'll be proper labeling and we're going to make everything up to code. We're going to be putting an elevator in because it is in a lower level. All the same code as to fire suppression, HVAC. Like I said, all the things that we've talked about are up to code on there. Egress windows, the whole 9 yards in there. The key thing is understanding the whole atmosphere and the whole piece that comes with it. It's not a very far walk or bike ride or travel down to the Trestle Park to look around the park and see that down there. Do some ecology, look at the science pieces on there. There's a lot of opportunities that come with that. Even going to look at the bog through the cemetery, there's another opportunity there to learn some more science-based type of things. Local businesses, you've seen what we've done with work-based learning opportunities in there. So there's a lot of key things. And again, general location to our general buildings with the high school, middle school, and so on. Even Hamilton now, very close by. So by having them a little more on campus per se, or closer to general campus, it provides a lot more opportunity. And if you have questions, just let me know. I think that everybody that has reached out and I've been able to talk with them and I can explain it to them, they understand the backdrop a little bit more rather than the very surface level piece as to, oh, they just bought a church or you're partnering with the church just because it's the religious aspect. No, it's a building. They're good people. They've been there a long time. I believe somebody was telling me there were 6 members that were original members of the church.
Yeah.
But we want to work with them and they're looking to continue on, but then also give back to the community. And they see the school district as the ultimate way of giving back to the community.
You touched on earlier in the podcast, there is a house on the property. Any plans, any early initial thoughts on how the district might use that? Is it going to be sold? What are your thoughts on that right now?
So we're in the preliminary stages.
It's November 17th right now,
Yes,
2025. I would like to
That's very
point that
true.
out to the audience.
And happy Thanksgiving to everybody
Yeah.
that's watching it and coming up here on the holiday season, or Merry Christmas, so on. Happy New Year. So when we looked at that house, that's a very good question, Zach. That is a traditional house. There's 3 bedrooms upstairs, a couple downstairs, bath and a half. We started looking at that and really playing around the idea, can we make that like a learning lab? Can that give our school district an opportunity to use that as a learning lab, per se, of can our HVAC do some work in there and actually see how things work in a traditional housing environment with which HVAC? And can they do some work on it? Can they find out diagnosing ways to fix things? That might be a great way. Can Ignite, our Ignite program, play a part in working on that? We looked at different ways, even as a K-12 special education, can we give them an opportunity to do some daily life skills in a traditional housing? If it's in a bedroom or a kitchen or so on, it can be right there. So is there something we can do with our virtual school that they can do some learning in there? So it's an opportunity that not too often our school district, or in my career, I've never been in a situation where we have an opportunity where a house kind of comes with it. And what can we do with that to benefit our kids in our district? So that's our goal right now.
We want to thank our 42 community sponsors on today's podcast. Our Hawkeye Hometown Series sponsors have been tremendous with so many different community events and the podcast as well this year. You see them on your screen right now. Today, we will highlight Home Heating and Cooling, Van Dyken Mechanical Incorporated, and Dunesview Quick Shop. Thank you to those 3 fantastic companies for their continued support. Dunesview Quick Shop has been with the district a long time and been supporting a lot of different district initiatives, so we appreciate them very much. Back here on the H2Know Podcast with Superintendent Dr. Lusk, we are talking about Hamilton Virtual School and the purchase of the Hamilton Christian Reformed Church and how that will best serve the district beginning in 26-27 school year. The other piece of this is Sandy View Learning Center.
Oh, yeah.
Whitney Hobbs and Hawkeye Preschool, that's been a booming program the past couple of years as well. So, you talked about Sandy View Elementary becoming Sandy View Learning Center, 2 great programs going in, and all of a sudden both of them take off. The saying is, if you build it, they will come. So Hawkeye Preschool, what do you see the benefits being of this deal and really giving them the whole building with the early childhood special education program as well?
So that's a great point on there. And if you didn't see the other podcast with Whitney on there, please check that out.
Yes.
She's done a great job. And so Whitney really embodies what Early Childhood Center is that, and the community aspect of it, with just the way how she sees the bigger picture on this and really getting the little kids a great foundational start, getting them to learn, connecting with their school and the curriculum aspect. She's done a great job with that program. And I think that's really representative of not only our Hawkeye Kids program, but also our Early Childhood Center, our ECC piece on there. So kudos to her and the staff that goes along with it, with seeing the bigger picture, how they really start the whole educational journey for our whole K-12 experience, and then also before and after school with them. So kudos to them. Thank you very much. With this move, it's a good point you bring out, Zach, because it doesn't just impact the virtual school. It really impacts 2 programs.
Yeah.
And that's what I don't want to get lost in the shuffle on this or through the whole process, is that when you get into that building, Lara, Lara, is the licensing piece that makes sure that we're following the codes and procedures and everything for our Early Childhood Center. That part of the building is licensed for our 3 ECC programs and our ECSE program. Since that building already has some designations in there, it was actually easier for virtual, and again, due to sheer numbers alone, too, for the virtual school to go to the church rather than the ECC school. Because I've gotten that question. Well, why doesn't the ECC go over to the church? And I said, well, again, licensing is not the big one. It's easier to continue that, wrapping it around the corner down the hall and making that building hall ECC. And then also the sheer number of people involved in it. We have 3 classrooms with the 4th, the 5th that come for that, with the virtual school having many more people, just in general. So with that piece on there, Whitney and her crew can start wrapping around that building or down the hall down there, utilizing the gym more for their PE activities, having a library in there for our kids to be able to kind of learn and see more and have some more opportunities within that building. And then also we had a wait list, this year for our ECC program. So being able to now satisfy all the people that want to be part of the program, we'll have room to accommodate that, which is great. So we want to make sure our little Hawks, get in there as much as possible and quick as possible and can keep continuing to grow that program, and then also get them getting that part of that Hawkeye experience.
Something I should have asked you earlier, custodial staff, food service, all that going into technically adding a new building. You feel confident about custodial and food service and things like that?
So Mr. Paul Keen and his staff do a great job.
Yeah.
Obviously every day with our food needs right now across our whole district, even before school with kids, staff, the whole 9 yards, kudos to them. Adding this on, it would be very similar right now to what they're doing right now at Sandy View with ordering ahead of time when they can get those meals over to them. When we've worked through this process, I see nothing different. That'll be a very similar process for that. Paul and the staff, they always make it work and they do a great job. So that'll go pretty seamless, should be. And then with the custodial piece on there, yeah, we're adding a building. Absolutely on that. We'll have to add a position, or we'll be able to actually combine maybe a couple positions into a bigger piece on there. But I've been working with Jeff Frick and the crew on there for the custodial side, and we feel very confident that we can make this work very easily going forward with that position.
That's awesome. So, and maybe a little curveball here. 5 years from now, what do you expect the benefit of these decisions? Because ultimately, Sandyville Elementary to Sandyville Learning Center, now this purchase, I mean, there's been kind of a domino effect, if you will, the past couple of years. What do you expect this to look like 5 years down the road?
Well, I think the key thing to look at is that it blew our expectations for Sandy View, and we don't want that to happen again. And so we've learned from that. Not that it was a bad decision or really set us back in any way. It was one of those, it's a great problem to have. And I'd rather have good problems to have than bad problems to have. This is a good one to have. And so when we have this opportunity where we can actually have a good amount of room for growth in a program that is continuing to grow, I only see that continuing to grow on there. In our ECC, they're going to have their own building where they can continue to expand and then just keep enriching the curriculum and the offerings that we have for our earliest learners. So I think obviously Sandy View is going to continue doing great things on there with the ECC program. And we'll see. Maybe there's a part of that building we can tweak a little bit and utilize it for some other things. But that building is going to be great for our ECC program, especially with the naturescape and so on, with the playground and that whole area. It'd be great for them. For the virtual school obviously is its own school in there. But just like any other school, we want them to be part of the Hawkeye family, and that's why we're continuing to help support them. The growth they've made with the PBIS model, the MTSS, the support we've done for that program, it continues to grow, and they continue to do a great job. And to continuously improve, and provide a better opportunity for their students and learners. So in 5 years, I can see our ECC continue to grow to some extent and just getting better, becoming enriched with more educational opportunities and curriculum. Our virtual school, the same thing is there's probably more growth that can still happen with that program, which they'll keep going with full-time and part-time students, but then also continue to offer more opportunities for our students in that program with surrounding buildings, businesses, and community members.
That was really interesting stuff, really diving into the weeds of this purchase and making sense of it. I appreciate you being on, and hopefully we answered some questions today for the community.
Hey, I thank you for having me on, Zach. And for any of the viewers or people that have more questions, feel free to send me an email. And if there's a time we can email, chat, meet, do whatever the case is, I just want everybody to make sure they get their answers to their questions.
Lusk at hamiltonschools.us. And also you can find more information about Hamilton Virtual School on our website, hamiltonschools.us, under the schools tab. Hope you have a great day, Hamilton, and tune in wherever you get your podcasts. This is the H2Know Podcast.
Go Hawkeyes.